Us now to break down the legality of the Trump takeover, the Hill's Zach Schoenfeld. You're our legal guru, Zach. Good to see you.
Good morning.
So let's talk about the law in all of this and the National Guard. Are there any legal implications here or no?
Well, the president does have a lot more control over the D.C. National Guard as compared to state units in places like Maryland and Virginia, because in the 50 states, the governor is the one who is normally the commander-in-chief. That's why if you take, for example, when the president deployed the California National Guard in Los Angeles to combat immigration protests back in June, where he tried to basically take control away from California Governor Gavin Newsom. Governor Newsom is now suing in court, arguing that the law required him to consent for Trump to take it over. But none of that is at issue at the D.C. National Guard, where by default, it is the president who is in command. The mayor was never in control. The president never had to really federalize these troops. In fact, there's even questions about whereas other National Guard units, when they are federalized, there's a law called the Posse Comitatus Act that prevents these troops from engaging in civilian law enforcement activities. That's really come up in the California fight. But according to the Justice Department, they have legal opinions on the book saying that doesn't apply to the D.C. National Guard because the president never had to federalize it in the first place. So the D.C. National Guard really works very differently than these other state units across the country.
If you read the Home Rule Act, it is spelled out clearly that the president has the authority to do this. But we do know D.C.'s Attorney General says, hey, wait a second, we might put up some legal arguments. We have a statement from AG Brian Schwab. The administration's actions are unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. There is no crime emergency in the district. We are considering all of our options and will do what is necessary to protect the rights and safety of district residents. What stands out to me in the Home Rule Act is that 30 days. What can happen after that? Does the president have the authority to say there's still an emergency, I get another 30 days? Or is it cut and dry that that's it, it's over, MPD gets control of its own department again?
The way that the law is written is the emergency can only last 30 days unless Congress extends it further. So it is, of course, possible that congressional Republicans will be supporting Trump in this and issue some sort of extension. But putting that to the side, assuming that doesn't happen, this couldn't last more than 30 days. Now, the president could then try to declare another emergency and we could start the clock all over again. But at least as to this initial emergency declaration that we got yesterday, it would just be that 30 days maximum unless he can get congressional support.
So this is your wheelhouse, Zach, right? Do you see any potential legal problems here?
Potentially, but it does seem, as compared to many of these other cases, for example, the case in California, it's going to be much more of an uphill battle for these legal challenges. You mentioned there the statement a moment ago from the D.C. Attorney General, keeping all options on the table, saying this is unlawful, and also really taking aim at the fact that he doesn't think this is really a crime emergency. But there's going to be a question, if this ever lands in the court, as to whether judges have the power to even review Trump's determination that there is a crime emergency in the city. In other cases where the president has been relying on emergency powers, cases like the tariff case, immigration cases, we've seen the administration really tell courts that in these emergency power laws, the courts really have no authority to second guess the president's judgments on these types of things. So if this does land in the court, it's going to be a question as, whether there's arguments to be had about violent crime rates are dropping and all of that, the courts might not be able to even get there in the first place.
So I reached out to MPD yesterday to ask, is there any sort of guidebook or policy manual for what the procedures are and the policies for officers under a federalization like this, and was told no sort of document exists, which begs the question, what happens if MPD Chief Pam Smith defies an order from President Trump or AG Pam Bondi?
Well, that was actually a question that came up at the mayor's press conference yesterday. It was asked to the mayor who, if you get an order saying that MPD has been told to do something that you really disagree with, would you follow it? Now, the mayor really kind of shrugged off the question a little bit, said it's a hypothetical, but repeatedly tried to insist at that press conference yesterday that she is going to follow this executive order. So, of course, that is a question as we move forward and start, seeing these situations develop on the ground. But at least as of now, the message that D.C. leadership has been sending is that they're going to comply with orders by the federal government. We also know from the mayor that she is in the process of trying to set up a meeting with the Attorney General to get some answers to some of these questions about how procedures would work on the ground.
And she used this as an example of why Washington, D.C. deserves statehood. She did take advantage of that opportunity.
Usually comes back to statehood, doesn't it?
Zach, thanks so much, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.